Welcome back to the program now. I'm joined by Sherman Tate. He is representing the Urban League today, where he is the chairman of that organization, but he has a distinguished background in utilities and telecom and the auto industry and banking, and he's a Business Hall of Fame alumni as well. So good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, Robin. Thank you for having me.
You doing well?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Doing well.
Let us talk first about what is happening with the Urban League in Arkansas. There's been a resurgence of the Urban League in recent years. Tell me where the organization is today.
Very good, and I'm delighted to talk about it. The Urban League is back. We have officially been back in circulation, this going into our third year. There's one major difference. We are now a statewide Urban League affiliate. And originally, we were a Central Arkansas affiliate only. And we're located at 3805 West 12th Street in the Willie Hinton Neighborhood Resource Center.
Yeah.
And
I used to work with Willie Hinton's wife years ago. So
really?
Good lady there. So let's talk about the mission of the Urban League is really to focus on things happening in urban areas, in the cities, in the inner cities in particular, wherever the Urban League is located and wherever its mission is focused, jobs, education, housing, workforce, things that are happening at the neighborhood level, such as crime and public safety. What's the biggest issue that you feel like you're having to work on right now? I know all of those things are important, and I'm asking you to pick your favorite child, but I mean, which one's the most important?
Absolutely. If I may, the first point I want to make is the Urban League has no color. That's very important. It obviously focuses on issues really that affect adversely or otherwise the African American community and the Hispanic community, but we are an organization from day one that services the underserved or unserved regardless of ethnicity.
And particularly in Arkansas and Little Rock, and specifically that would include a lot of white people as well. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a lot of people don't understand that. Now, an issue that you appropriately outlined all of the issues that we are focused on. Those are all priorities, but the issue that is a burning issue with us and with me in particular is the issue of education. We have rolled out our educational program. We call it Excellence in Education. I have visited with Governor Hutchinson about it. I visited with Johnny Key about it. They both know what we're concerned about, where we wanted to start, and they have both been supportive.
What's been the biggest concern? Is it the fact that public education is changing, more opportunities for school choice? Is that where the resistance is, or?
It's not so much resistance as it is what our research tells us and what we see. The fact of the matter is, continuing is a disproportionate number of students predominantly in the traditional public schools, but also in the public charter schools, some of them, children that do not have any proficiency or any sufficient proficiency in the basic skills of reading, writing, math, and communications. And that's a huge issue, and that impacts their ability to gain employment and to move forward with their lives after high school. Should they choose to go to college, they can't go into college prepared to do college work. They have to have some remediation. And if you talk to any college president in Arkansas, in fact, across the country, it's not unique to Arkansas, more and more students are coming in that have to have remediation before they can start regular college curriculum courses.
Sure. So what does the Urban League do to change that? Because there's not enough Mama Tates in the world to make sure that their children are getting pushed as hard as you were pushed, or is that the solution?
That is a huge part of the solution. That is an important part, and as we roll out our program, we do several things in trying to promote the importance of excellence in education. First thing we do is we meet with the local clergy, as many of them as we can get in the room that live in a particular school district, and then we explain to them what we're going to do, why we're there, what we need
Because
from
of their
them.
leadership skills and the fact that people will listen to what they have to say, and so there's basically a teaching moment.
Absolutely. People will listen. They're more prone to listen to the clergy.
Sure.
So we want them to help us get the second group out. And the second group that we want to meet with, and then we try to meet with, are the parents of children in the school district that we happen to be working with. And we try to get them to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. We don't come into town and try to give anybody the impression that we have all the answers. Quite the contrary. We come in and share some bare facts with them, and then we ask them what they think about their school district, and if there's anything they would change, what would it be? We do talk to them about the importance of children being able to read, write, communicate, and do some math, and we can point to specific industries, just randomly pick one.
But you're not trying to create a program where you're going to go in and instill something happening. You're trying to push public policy, and you're trying to push the existing leadership in a school district or leadership at the state level to work harder on deficiencies that you see is the basic push of what the Urban League is doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I don't care whether it's a school district or a major corporation, if the leadership is not focused on the critical issues, then the people down in the ranks will typically fall short of implementation. And school superintendents and principals, we want them to be refocused. We recognize that in this environment, the classroom teachers have an inordinate amount of administrative tasks that they have to do that they previously didn't have to do. Somehow, between the State Department of Education and the superintendents and the school boards, we need to look at that. So that the teachers can maximize their time in actual classroom teaching and interaction with students.
And not some of the administrative work.
And not so much of the administrative work.
Let's flip gears and talk about another huge issue in urban parts of Arkansas, urban parts of America, things that would be important to the Urban League, that it's a little different from these overall missions right here. But we have seen in Florida a school shooting this week that is one of many that we have seen over the last several months, where we're seeing this escalating gun violence at all levels of society right here. Is that a push for the Urban League? Is that a push for Sherman Tate to say we've got to speak up and do something different on this front?
The Urban League, that's not on our agenda of issues that we are promoting, but it is on our radar scope in the sense that it impacts what happens in schools, and as a result of that happening, the impact that it has on the students' ability to be attentive, and the teacher's comfort level in standing in a classroom not knowing who might be sitting out there or who may come crashing through the door with a weapon, whether it's an AR-15 or otherwise. For me personally, I can't think of enough adjectives to describe my sensitivity about it. It does not make sense to me to see a proliferation of legislation that authorizes guns that can be carried into schools, on college campuses, into bars where everybody's having adult beverages, into churches, on the street. And if you look at the statistics do not support the notion that if everybody's carrying a gun, we're going to drive down crime. Quite the contrary. You can look at Arkansas, you can look at any city or state across the country, and crime goes up. Mm-hmm. So we need, hopefully, legislators to understand this and not be influenced necessarily by the NRA or anybody else other than their constituents that they represent, and try to find some middle ground there to restrict the number of guns that are on the street. And it doesn't have anything to do with Second Amendment rights.
Well, I think that you're going to find in the Arkansas legislature and in Congress today that you're going to be on the losing end of that argument at this point in time. I don't mean to diminish it, but
No,
I'm just saying there is not a aptitude to make changes to the gun laws. We've seen, really going back to the Sandy Hook days, it's not. They're having a change. What's it going to take to make that change? You think it's going to take a replacement of those legislators at the state and the federal level?
Well, one of the things that the Urban League is going to be promoting, and that has always historically promoted, and that is voting rights and encouraging people to go to the polls and vote, and informing them and educating them about issues that critically impact every community, their community and other communities across the state. Go vote, and if you know the issues, then vote your conscience and vote for people who seem to represent what you and your community thinks is in your best interest. And that's what's important. And you know, we've seen a diminishing number of people going to the polls here in the last couple of elections. That does concern us.
Yeah. But I gave a talk earlier this week to an agriculture business conference up in Northeast Arkansas, up in Jonesboro, and we talked about the rural versus urban divide that we see in Arkansas and that we see across America. And you've got it when you look even broader at blue states and red states, and you know, the West Coast and East Coast versus Middle America. How do we do a better job of bridging that gap? Because I don't think it's. My point to this group was it's not rural versus urban. It needs to be rural plus urban. It needs to be rural and urban. We got to find some common ground between these two very disparate, distinctively different worldviews that come from living in a city and living in the country. You grew up in the country.
Absolutely.
You've lived in the city.
Absolutely.
How do we bridge that gap?
I think a couple of things have to take place, Roby. I think first it takes us right back to the importance of education. And when I say that, I'm not promoting whether you go to college or whether you go to a technical school. Education is important. And when you are educated, you got enough knowledge, you can make good decisions, and that tends to impact rural in a positive way, but in a broader sense, the state in another way. The other thing that we got to do is we got to engage and encourage our major corporate leaders across the state to become more proactive. And I'm not suggesting that they are not proactive, but historically, there have been corporate leaders that have noticed and taken an interest in what is going on in rural areas as well as in the urban areas. And there are some that still do that, you know.
Where do you think the neglect is right now? Is it in the rural areas or is it in the urban areas?
I think in Arkansas, I hear more often than I care to hear that the people in the Delta don't want to work, don't have skills, no sense in looking at them, and as a result, you don't see as much effort to put or to encourage corporations to expand or locate in the Delta areas. Now, Big River Steel is an exception, and I know somebody will say, well, we got Big River Steel. I'm very aware of that.
Yeah. There are some other pockets of success, but I hear what you're saying in
Right.
a bigger picture sense.
In a bigger picture.
You see the urban areas benefiting a lot more from
Absolutely.
economic expansion.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Kind of last question on this front, I guess, because I feel like we've got to find a way for people to walk in each other's shoes. I think part of the problem is that there is a lack of understanding. If I live in the city, I don't know what it's like to live outside of the city, and therefore it's hard for me to relate to that way of life, and vice versa. If I live in the country and I have not lived in the city, it's hard for me to understand what it's like to have that particular perspective or worldview. I don't know how we do an exchange program between urban and rural, but it seems to me that that is something that has to happen so people have a better understanding of what it's truly like to live a day in the life of someone that lives in Marvell, Arkansas, or somebody that lives in Little Rock, Arkansas.
That's an excellent observation. One of the things that I would like to see us do is become again more proactive with mentoring programs that gave students and adults an opportunity to visit with, whether it's in the Delta or whether it's in Little Rock or whether it's in Northwest Arkansas or wherever, to visit with and speak to business leaders and learn what they do and where they do it and why they do it and what they got to have in order to continue that business doing what it does. That's important because if you talk to anybody at the state chamber, they will tell you we got thousands of job vacancies in Arkansas, and that we don't have the people with the skill sets to fill them. But what I believe with all my soul is there are folk who would be willing to fill those jobs, but we gotta somehow talk to them and create some hope. And people are like children. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And then people will start to listen, and I think, can start to move forward. And we don't have enough people now that act like they care.
We have started a conversation that I have to cut us short on time because we do have some time constraints here. And I don't think we're going to come to a conclusion on this today, but let's keep this dialogue going. I know that there are some solutions in this, and there are other people that need to have this same conversation that you and I are having. Sherman Tate, good to be with you.
Listen, good to be with you, and again, thank you very much for having me on.
Be looking at what the Urban League has to do. When you have some new stuff that launches, you make sure you come and tell me about it, all right?
I will definitely do that. And anybody that's interested, they can call us. 379-1598.
He's a shameless plugger there. I like it. So that is all for today's program. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Roby Brock. We'll see you next time.